Welcome back to our book club. Today we're talking about The Fault in Our Stars by John Green.
And Kayli sent you guys her love. Unfortunately, her grandpa passed away last night, and so she couldn't be with us today. I know she really wanted to. She loved the book, but I think he passed away of leukemia, and I think just talking, in the spirit of it all, it's definitely too much for her. So we're sending her our love and our prayers and with her family. So she can't be here, and she's sorry.
We had some amazing viewer questions and comments about this book. I think the reason we chose it is because a lot of viewers told us that they loved it, and so we had some amazing comments that I want to share.
This is from Kayla O, and she says, I read it a while ago, but oh my gosh, it is an amazing, amazing novel. I love the approach it took to cancer. Instead of a pity party, it was fresh, edgy, and so funny.
And Ariel B says, my favorite part was whenever Hazel and Augustus were on the phone in their third little world. I can relate to that feeling, and it was very romantic and charming in this book. I like the fact that the two of them admitted that they liked each other from the start, but were playing around and continuing to get to know each other. I also appreciated the understated sex scene.
Why'd you look at me?
No reason.
Pausing for awkward Carliness. And Venus F says, I absolutely love how John Green portrayed Hazel and Augustus to be very witty and clever teenagers, which is very refreshing. I also admire his use of metaphors in the book. The metaphorical use of putting a cigarette in your mouth without lighting it, or the fact that Hazel's name is Hazel, which is an in-between color, showing her in-between personality.
Thank you guys for participating in this book club. Eventually we're going to have a live situation where we can have your comments and questions come in real time, which will be really exciting.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we're just going to use some of them for our conversation, and we also need your help picking future books. We have a whole Facebook app set up for this. We also started a Goodreads account.
Oh,
yes.
Fabulous.
So we'll put the links in, join us, give us suggestions. We're going to be reviewing the books we read and also some of our own personal favorite books. So thank you for being part of this. The other really exciting thing is we're going to be talking to John Green of Vlog Brothers at VidCon. We're going to talk to him and ask him some questions. We'll be asking you guys what questions you want us to ask him. Through our discussion today, we'll probably come up with some questions we want to ask him.
And he was one of the founders and creators of VidCon in itself. I didn't know that.
I didn't know
that. Katilette and Shay know him, and they're good friends. And him and his brothers created this whole opportunity. So Shay said he's so smart and just great, and he put this whole thing together. VidCon. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot to talk to John Green about. So for those of you that may not have read the book, The Fault in Our Stars is about a 16-year-old girl named Hazel who has a rare terminal cancer, and her parents force her to go to a support group, which she's reluctant to go to, but then she meets Augustus Waters, who also has cancer but seems to be on the mend, had bone cancer and has one of his legs missing. It was amputated, lost it to cancer. And it's about their relationship and what they learn through getting to know each other. So the first question, and actually all of the viewers brought this up to some degree, the comments that we read, Hazel's personality. I mean, it's kind of amazing that he's writing this book from the point of view of a teenage girl. Did it work? What do you guys think?
It worked.
I thought so too.
I thought it totally worked. And at first, when I picked up the book, I thought, okay, is a guy really going to be able to speak in the voice of a teenage girl?
Yeah.
He did it. I thought it was amazing. I loved her character. I loved every word out of her mouth. I thought she was so interesting and so clever and witty, and I really just loved her.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I like too that it wasn't a stereotype, because I was like,
Right.
oh God. But I was a teenage girl and I couldn't even write in this kind of a teenage girl voice. I think there's nothing more irritating where you are a teen to read a book and it's like, the fact that she's sort of jaded and down to earth, and she's not, just light and fluff or I mean, her intellect, her sensibility of dealing with the reality of her situation was really refreshing.
And in the moments when she is like a giddy teenager, she's got that self-awareness. She's like, now I'm being all googly.
Yeah.
And it seemed real.
Now I'm waiting for
Really
him to
real.
call.
Exactly. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I like that she wasn't a typical teenage girl, and she was very aware of herself and who she was, and she just represented to me a lot of strength in knowing who she was and what was going on in her life, and she just owned it,
Totally. I don't know how he did this. Actually, we should ask him that.
That's a good question.
Because-
Write that down.
Yeah, I'm writing it down. Where's my pen?
I also say, how did he write like every girl's like fantasy boy of all time? I'm like, I want this guy to be my boyfriend. Like, nah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like every teenage girl's, at least for me, he would be like my total.
Right.
He would be my total dreamboat too, but I don't know if everyone. I think we both like. Well, I think we both. I'm going to speak about Amanda's husband. I think we both like the artists. You know.
Yeah.
So I agree. I like the tortured but intellectual, knowing guy.
That's
you know?
not my husband. Sorry.
So I'm with you.
the
I don't know
frat
if they're
guy.
with us, but I'm with
guy.
you. Augustus
See,
Waters was
yes.
like my ideal guy.
I'm
Was
with you,
your
like,
ideal guy? Not
the
so much.
sports type of guy, but he did.
Yeah.
He played basketball. I just like that he had like game. Like he
Yeah.
was cool and like coy with her and like. But he was into her, and like I loved when he made her bashful. I love those moments when guys can do that because I feel like it's very rare these days where guys aren't like throwing out lines or things that they know that like work or very cliche. And it seemed like he was very original with his feelings, and I like that he like pushed the limits with her in a way, but it was like very respectful. And so she like wasn't expecting it, and she would get bashful and be like, I could just imagine her being like, oh gosh, you know.
I love it when smart is cool because
Right.
it's so not cool right now. You know, like with my daughter, she's like, I'm the teacher's pet.
Smart
And
is always cool.
smart is cool, and I like that. Smart is sexy, and smart is cool.
Janet, will you actually read the part in the book where they reference the title? So, Gus and Hazel have fallen in love, but she's really, really sick and is probably going to die. They write a letter to an author that they admire, and this is something in the letter that he writes back.
So here goes. Were she better or you sicker, then the stars would not be so terribly crossed. But it is the nature of stars to cross. And never was Shakespeare more wrong than when he had Cassius note, the fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves.
So Shakespeare is wrong. The fault is in our stars. Sorry, I just like. What do you guys even think about that? I mean,
I think it does speak to sometimes everything just goes wrong. Sometimes it just does. You're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. If only one element were different, then the whole scenario would change. And like how unfortunate that they meet at this time, and then spoilers.
yeah, it's all right. Okay, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
But you find the love of your life, and then like 2.4 seconds later, you find out he is dying. I mean,
Right.
But that's what I thought most was refreshing about this book. It wasn't going to end how we all wanted it to.
Right.
It was that's like how life really is, and you can't control it. And I think things like this, more books need to be like this, even though they're not like the fun reads, because it's just, that's how life is, and it's good to learn from real life experiences. And I love that it wasn't how I want it to be. Them get married, and they have a family, and they're
There's a
both
magic
cured,
cure,
right.
and they're both drinking lemonade, and their kids are in the yard. Like, you know, like that's, to me, that's how most books should end, because it's a book, you know? But I like that it was very, like, real.
But I thought it was also inspirational in the fact that I loved the way they carried their cancer, for lack of a better word. But they didn't take pity on themselves. They joked about it. I mean, it's a really heartbreaking book, but I found myself laughing out loud.
Yeah.
me too.
And at parts where they were making fun of their cancers. You know, I mean, it
Even
sounds
though-
terrible,
yeah.
but they really took it in stride, and I found it really inspirational. It made me feel like, oh, the little things that are wrong in my life that I
Right.
complain about, wow.
I was thinking about you a lot reading this because I know your mom passed away from cancer.
Yes.
About a year ago, right?
That's right.
How did this fit into your healing / non-healing, like the crazy grief process? Yeah.
It was. I mean, maybe I don't know if you'd want to ask John Green that, but to me, it really seemed to me like he's obviously lost someone.
I will ask John Green that.
Through cancer in particular. What really resonated with me as someone who has lost somebody was her response after he died. Like when he calls, oh no. When he calls and he's listening to, when she calls and she's listening to his voicemail like over and over. And I had that same experience with my mother. I just like wanted to hear her. And those moments when it's not real to her that he's gone yet, where she's, you're just waiting for them to walk through the door. That really resonated with me a lot. Thank you. But I also appreciated, and I thought it was really similar, when we talk about, it makes me think a lot about, would you like to know? Because Hazel knows that she's not got forever. She knows it's a limited amount of time, and my mother also knew that. Yeah. And so the sort of appreciation of now was really important. And I've connected with that in the book, that they were able to drink champagne in Amsterdam, that there were the genies there, that they were so connected so soon. I think there is that urgency of we seize the kind of carpe diem, you know, like this is what we have, and really approaching that full forward. My mother was also someone who was very funny and very lighthearted, and so the humor. I mean, even at the end, she would make little jokes, you know, and try for our sake, you know, to ease that for us. And also, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like, and the me show now, the me show.
No, it's really.
But when he has her write his eulogy and has them come to the funeral, that really resonated with me. My mother, because she knew, she wrote her own funeral plans. She planned everything out. She's like, here's who I want to speak. This is what I want to have happen. Wow. Afterwards, I want to have a potluck for enough food for everybody. And she was actually in the room about a week before she passed away. She had all of my siblings, and we all were able to sit there with her and tell stories and talk about her life. And she was telling stories of growing up, and we were laughing and joking and like remembering her. And she was pretty much there for her funeral. So I know
amazing.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, you think about, would I want to know or would I not want to know? And I think I would want to know. And I thought that was nice how Augustus was able to have that for himself. It makes a big difference, I think.
Thank you for sharing that. What did you guys make of the end, you know, for them? What did you think? I'll read a question from Nina P. says, amazing book. I think that the ending is worth discussing. Did you predict it? Is that how you wanted it to end? Also, did any of you cry? I think so.
Yeah,
I think I did. Because I did.
I cried.
I know. I cried thinking about it. I would also discuss the plot twists. Such an amazing book, and I could probably discuss it for hours.
I really love what they said in the meeting, like living the best life today. And I think that cancer patient or not, that's how we should all live life. For those who can't or who want to, like how Hazel would watch the children run around and she couldn't do that because of her lungs. It's like, how many things do we take for granted, you know, being healthy and able and capable to live any life that we want, and, you know, we sit and worry about clothing and, you know, things that just don't matter. So that, I love that message in the book, just to live your best life today.
What I thought was so touching about Hazel was that she cared more about everybody else around her than herself.
Yeah.
She was the one who was dying, and she, as she called herself, a grenade. I'm a grenade, and no one knows when I'm going to go off, but I want to alleviate the number of people who I hurt in the end.
Yeah.
That I thought that was heartbreaking to me. And she was just so selfless.
Yes.
And then the moment when her father says, and I was just thinking about this, was you were crying about your mom, that sometimes when we lose people, it almost feels like, why did we have to ever love them? Because the loss is painful, right?
And he said...
And her father comes and talks to her and says, you know how wonderful you feel knowing Gus, even though you lost him.
It was a privilege to love him, and now you know how I feel about you.
Yeah,
I lost
totally.
it at that too.
Well, since we've already segued so quickly into death, uplifting book club. Next time we're reading a comedy, no more, no death, lighthearted romantic farce, beach reading. I'm excited.
Lots of sex.
Lots of sex for Carly. Since I can't have it. Okay, this is great. This is how to measure the value of a life. Deep thoughts, but I think really worth our discussing. Jane W. says, amazing book. I hope it ends up on reading lists for schools because it touches on a lot of topics that everyone will have to deal with. One theme that particularly struck me was the attempt to put value on one's life by measuring what they left behind, which leads to the even more complex question of figuring out if that is actually the way to rank life value. Are people worth less, or do their lives matter less if they aren't extraordinary and don't change the world?
I think that everyone kind of feels that at some point in their life, that, you know, that pressure of like, oh my gosh, I'm X old and I haven't done X, Y, and Z, and what I could, you know, what is my purpose? Why do I, what's the
do it all over again.
Right, I should have done this and I should have taken advantage of that. And it's, I don't know, I can relate to Hazel's sort of frustration with Gus in that way, because she's, from her perspective, she's like, you're an amazing person. I want more of you. I just want more of you, just who you are. And that's
aren't
what
I
she
enough
values.
for you?
That too, right.
Yeah.
But he feels like, what mark is he going to have left?
Well, I also think that he knew he only had this amount of time. And so we feel like, well, we have the rest of our lives to leave any
get it
kind of
done,
mark
we'll get it
that
done,
we're going to
yeah.
leave. But if you had only a month to live, I think you might feel that pressure. I don't know, but you might feel that pressure to, I want to do something, I want to leave my mark, I want people to remember me for something, because I'll be gone, and then what's left?
Right.
It's an really interesting question.
It really is.
But I definitely feel like on your deathbed, and this, I was speaking to my therapist about this. When my mother was passing away, like I was telling my therapist, it's like she wasn't worried about her career. That was not what was on her mind. What was on her mind was her husband and her children.
Her loved ones.
And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but that's, I mean, I guess it's cliche for a reason. I mean, that is humanity. That is what matters most on your way out. You're not thinking about.
No, right.
I feel like life is like the essence of cliches. All the small things matter. You can't take with you your job, your career. You can't take those stats, what amounts of money that you made in your job. I mean, really the only thing you can take with you is the people who loved you and the ones who will be speaking at your funeral. You can't take that with you, but essentially, like, that's all that matters.
You know, I agreed with you. We were talking before. You said found so inspirational, hopeful about the book, is that they did find love, you know, and that they found, they found just this really human, amazing connection. Actually, I think to the readers, or at least to me, felt like they had achieved the best thing you can achieve before they died.
And it is, I think with your children, it's not just DNA you're passing on. It's not just
Right.
biology. Like, it's how like in my instance, your parent changed you, and how I now change the other people around me and my children because of her. And now Hazel has been changed because of Augustus. It changes the way she deals with other people.
Well, I think it's like comes down to the seeds we
Right.
plant, and maybe he didn't do like all these heroic like physical things he can see, but I think a human life should never be undervalued, because you never know, like, even if you can touch one person's life, you know, that person can touch how many people because of what you had taught them. And I think that with Augustus, he left many seeds that he planted that maybe he didn't get to see live out.
Right.
But in heaven, he'll be looking down and see that he did leave a mark, and that those little seeds he planted grew through, you know, the characters, and maybe as they get married on in their life, it will touch other people. And so I just don't think we can, like, he should ever undervalue, like, his mark. He did leave a
But
lot.
it is a shame that
That's
he
so
didn't see it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And that she kept trying to convince him that you are making a mark, you're leaving a mark, and he didn't buy it.
So sorry.
So maybe just sort of a lighter question, just to
Lighter note.
just about this book of Imperial Affliction. So this is Hazel's obsessed with this book, right? And we don't even need to talk about the book, but just curious, are there books that you guys, anybody here? I mean, that's an extraordinary connection she has with that book. But are there any books that you guys remember having really connected to, or having meaning throughout various parts of your life?
I remember feeling that way when I was a teenager about another roadside attraction. This book was amazing too, like blew my mind.
Oh, wait, is that who is that?
What's his name? Tom
Mhm,
Robbins.
totally.
And I was like, this is the answer.
Because what's it about again? It's like
It's bizarro. It's like this
it.
traveling roadside show, and he finds this monkey, and like the body of Christ is discovered, and like they end up going into like space and burning up. It's like when I was like 15, I was like,
Sounds like we found our next book for night. Jesus the monkey does circus. What else do you need for entertainment?
there's a love story. There's an amazing love story. So, and my teenage angst, it's a great book.
Yeah.
I love it. No Love Lost, Tom Robbins.
When I was a teenager, and this is like talk about the cliche of like teenage girl angst. I loved The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, which I think she mentioned Sylvia Plath.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
And I think she might be making fun of it or something in the book. But anyway, I loved it, and in case you don't know, it was written in the 1960s by Sylvia Plath, who was a poet, who ended up killing herself by sticking her head in a gas oven.
I was just gonna say, in high school, I remember like reading like church manuals and church books and like the reading we had to in class, but I was so busy like with like student government, cheerleading, dance, school, life, boyfriends, I never read until I got like out of high school, and now I really enjoy it, and just there's so many books I'm like, I want to read, making lists of them, but that's why I love the book club, because it's almost like I felt last night, finishing the last couple chapters. I was like, high school, I have to get this book done. So I can report about it and get an A.
You get an A+, Carly. And I think that's true for a lot of people. I mean, people go through, I think everyone goes through phases too, where you can read more or less based on what's going on in your life and other things. The only book that I remember from childhood hanging on to is a book by E.L. Konigsberg. I think it's called The Changeling. There's just this specific moment in it. Actually, my best friend's gonna kill me. She's gonna be like, you told this story. We were just, best friends, and the book is about that age when you're 11 and people are starting to become teenagers and things are starting to get too cool, but you still have, what am I talking about? I never got too cool. I've always been like an overexcited, whatever. But so the book was about embracing and keeping that part of you that's like excited by the world, and and I was like a little mantra we shared. There was a little poem in it, and we would sing it to each other. I can't tell you. When Hazel and Gus go to check out their hero and this guy who wrote this book, we should just talk about that before we wrap. That experience is crazy. What did you think of it?
That was so unexpected.
I loved it though, because it's like, of course we're picturing that we're gonna knock on the door and he's gonna wrap them in his arms and say something that's gonna change their lives, and like I kept thinking like he's gonna say something so awesome and like so parable to somehow their life and this cancer and everything that's playing into it. But he didn't. It was like this fat drunk a-hole. Like
it's funny. It's like, it is scary to me because I'm like, this isn't a show about alcoholism too. It's already depressing right now.
Yeah, no.
It makes you go like, oh my gosh, how easy you can allow one event in your life to just destroy everything. So I thought it was a good kind of cautionary tale.
He was living his own cancer, even though he wasn't diagnosed. And I know that sounds terrible because he didn't have it, but alcoholism is like that, and it was killing him slowly.
We don't get to have that peace and closure and sense of wrapping things up with a neat little bow, but we still have to find a way to accept what's going on and to say goodbye and to let go gracefully. Just an amazing book. Keep recommending books to us and telling us what you think of the books we're reading and about our discussion, and we need you to be part of this, so thank you. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Hey guys, we selected the next book for July's book club. It is a book by Jodi Picoult and her daughter Samantha Van Meer. They actually color it. It is called Between the Lines. A lot of viewers told us that they love Jodi Picoult. I've actually never read anything by her, so I'm really looking forward to it. And this book is about a teenage bookworm who gets really into the fantasy of the prince that she's reading about in her fantasy novel. And then she finds out it may not actually be a fantasy after all. So it should be exciting, should be fun. Read along with us. Give us your comments and questions on our Facebook page. We'll be uploading the first Friday of August, so stay tuned. Thanks, guys. See you later.